Millions of Americans cannot afford the short-term pain that J.D. Vance describes as a result of Trump's tariff policies. They've increasingly acknowledged in recent weeks that, yeah, it's going to be a bumpy ride for a while as we announce and roll out these tariffs. They argue that it'll be worth the long-term gain, and while I'm not here to test the veracity of that statement, I am here to defend low-income Americans, of which I used to be one. Some economists are estimating $3,500 a year in price increases, the impact to an average American as a result of the retaliatory tariffs that Donald Trump put into effect yesterday. Added to the price increases is the corporate greed that exists in America because we insist on protecting capitalism at all costs. And what that results in is the upward transfer of wealth, where these corporations don't end up paying people more, they just keep more of the wealth for themselves, especially in times of economic uncertainty. Lots of lower income Americans don't actually make a living wage off of their primary employment. Then they have to go to get supplementation from things like VA benefits, from disability, Social Security, Medicaid. All of those things are life-sustaining programs for millions of Americans. So you have this tripling effect where prices go up, wages are unsustainable, and the supplemental income that millions of Americans rely on is suddenly not necessarily guaranteed. So when J.D. Vance says temporary pain, i.e. higher prices for years to come because of this tariff and trade war approach, what he is completely missing is that for many Americans, even a couple of days of temporary pain could lead to crisis.
Hey guys, welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Lumi, and today we're going to be talking about Liberation Day. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't feel very liberated, and I don't think the stock market is feeling very liberated also. Like, as I'm recording this, the Dow Jones is almost down 1,300 points since the stock market opened. Like, guys, this is getting pretty serious. You know, I cover a lot of this stuff on the channel, and I've been saying it's all doom and gloom for a while now, but part of me always hoped that it would bounce back. But I think any semblance of hope has pretty much left me at this point, and a lot of people would agree with me. When I was researching for today's video, I actually heard the mainstream media say that the recession is more likely now. Like, when you hear those guys say that, you know this stuff is getting real. I think they said a recession is basically 50-50 at this point, and our livelihoods and life as we know it will now be decided on a coin toss. Just let that sink in for a moment. Anyway, I want to hear all your thoughts on this. Do you guys think this pain is temporary, or do you think we'll see more opportunity in the future? Or do you think this is all madness? Let me know in the comment section down below.
Today was Liberation Day. Donald Trump, he announced these new tariffs today under the declaration of a national emergency of large and persistent U.S. trade deficits. There are basically two key components to it. So there's a 10% baseline tariff on most imports effective April 5th, but then there's another more confusing part of this. There's actually country-specific reciprocal tariffs on the 60 worst offender nations, one nation of which has 0 people living in it. These go into effect on April 9th. The way that the rate was calculated, it seems, was by dividing the trade deficit by total exports, which confuses actual tariffs with trade deficits. And if the reciprocal tariffs do go into effect, they would be added up. So China could now face a 54% total tariff. That's the 34% new plus 20% already in place for fentanyl-related sanctions. And he held up a piece of paper to kind of tell everybody what was going on. But getting into the math of this, if it was just the 10%, this would be a $330 billion tax hike, which is based on the $3.3 trillion in 2024 imports that we had. UBS estimates that a 10% universal tariff could lead to a 10% contraction in the stock market. And Donald Trump is trying to raise $6 trillion, presumably over the next 10 years. So $600 billion a year in cost would cost the average household about $5,000 a year. This was a man who has voted in on fixing inflation. However, these tariffs are going to make things a lot more expensive. The National Foreign Trade Council President Jake Colvin said that consumers should expect to see high prices from everything from groceries to home renovations to auto insurance as construction and repair costs rise. It's also going to really impact Amazon because de minimis tariff exemptions, which currently allow packages worth $800 or less from China and Hong Kong to enter the U.S. tax-free, will end on May 2nd. Canada and Mexico are avoiding these things for now because of the separate 25% tariffs tied to migration and fentanyl. USMCA compliant goods remain tariff-free. The administration is saying that they want to reshore manufacturing. That's why they're doing these tariffs, but they've made things very complicated. So now they have a tariff on manufacturers that have moved to Vietnam or Cambodia, and sure, they can reshore to the United States, but it could be catastrophic for businesses to do that so quickly. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said for every country to not retaliate, sit back, see how it goes. But of course, countries are going to want to retaliate. And then we enter something called the Kindleberger spiral, which was part of the reason that the Great Depression was so bad. Congress can recall this at any time. He is doing all of this underneath emergency measures. Stocks are certainly not happy about this. We'll see if this is all just for negotiation and leverage, but it's really putting so much of the economy at risk and the American consumer as well.
It really feels like we're playing a game of chicken at this point. Like, who's gonna blink first? Will it be the US or will it be the rest of the world? Like, it really does feel like this. And it's wild to me that this administration is so quick to play this dangerous game. The fact that they're rushing into a trade war is kind of insane to me. I think this whole thing could have been handled with more nuance, like a slow and steady pace. But no, we have to engage in like a full-on trade war with pretty much the entire world all at once. And when you say it out loud, you realize how crazy it actually sounds. But yeah, I like to remind all you guys that, like, if you have a job right now, please hold on to that job for dear life. Like, honestly, the job market right now is pretty much cooked. But imagine the next 3 months. It's gonna get so much worse. All of these tariffs are gonna make everything more expensive, and companies are gonna need to cut costs. And always the easiest and fastest way to cut costs is to fire employees. So yeah, if you're lucky enough to have a nice job right now, I wouldn't do anything to rock the boat, so to speak. Maybe even kiss a little ass, I don't know. Also, if you can help it, get out of any bad debt you're in right now, and don't open any new debt. If the Fed raises interest rates on top of all of this, I think it's going to make the economy spiral out of control. And if the government loses grip on this, we could probably see bailouts happen in the future, which is not a good thing. Like, guys, we need to wake up here and make smart money decisions, tough decisions, because if you're not careful, things can go from bad to much, much worse.
The stock market is down big after Liberation Tariff Day today. It's down 3.6% after hours. Here's why it's selling off and what I think happens next. Tariffs came in worse than expected, a lot worse than expected. So I laid out here the base case assumptions the market was pricing in for today. That's what the market expected. Here's what actually happened today. The policy enacted today is much more aggressive and far-reaching in nature. It's deemed a reciprocal tariff policy in which 10% baseline tariff across the board. The plan imposes steep rates on many countries, 34% on China, 20% on the European Union, 46% on Vietnam, and 32% on Taiwan. To clarify, the tariff on China comes in addition to the existing 20% tariff already in action. So really the effective tariff rate on China is 54%. There were no reversals of tariffs on Canada and Mexico. And guess how many countries are impacted now? Here's the list. 50. 50. Here's what I think happens next. So the stock market's going to very quickly price this all in over the next few days. We're going to see some red days, some pretty big red days, some volatility. Once that's done, I think the market is starting to bake in the fact that a lot of this could just be negotiations. Yes, and I think that it's going to bake in, and I know a lot of smart investors are thinking a very similar way, that the rates that we saw today are likely the worst and that they will likely get better. As more countries start negotiating, hopefully we do not end up in a global trade war. There's two potential outcomes. The first one is that the impacts of these tariffs hit fast and they hit hard. And a truce may be formed, but it might be too late. And this happened in 2018. And when this happened, the stock market dropped 25%. From top to bottom. The second scenario is that as soon as the administration starts to see weak economic data coming out, they may decide to pull back on some of these tariffs, and the president may try to highly encourage the Fed to start dropping rates sooner than expected. We just need more data, and as I've encouraged all of you over the last few weeks, be patient.
One thing I really regret not doing is when Warren Buffett came out and said that he was selling all his stocks, that's when I should have sold. Because right now, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are in the same boat as me, all my investments right now have pretty much, like, all the profits I made have pretty much been wiped out. Like, we're back to where we were a year ago, I think. So all the progress that was made this past 12 months has been pretty much wiped out. Yeah, I'm not gonna sell. I'm like locked in at this point. Like, but I play the long game. Like, I don't really like to trade very often. Like, I just like to buy and just hold for a long time until I like need the money or something. Yeah, I'm at this point where it's just like I'm just gonna sit back and watch watch the dumpster fire from afar, you know? But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please give me a like down below. Dislike it if you dislike it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Have you guys sold anything? Like, have you sold any stocks like before the tariffs hit? Or are you just gonna hold on like I am? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoy this sort of content, please consider subscribing. It would help me and the channel go a long way. But anyway, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Later.